Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu. My name is Hamza Dudgeon, and we're on lesson 4, Ad-Darsu Ar-Rabi'u. And we have a proverb here, Kama tazra'u tahsudu, as you sow, you shall reap. So, zara'a means to, sow or grow crops, and hasada means to harvest or to reap. And so vocabulary here is 1 through 10, the numbers in Arabic with the Arabic numerals. So we have wahidun, ithnani, thalathatun, arba'atun, khamsatun, sittatun, sab'atun, thamaniyatun, tis'atun, asharatun. And one key thing to look for is that the Arabic numerals are written in the same direction as just like in English. So it goes the opposite direction Arabic words would typically go. So that's a important thing to remember when you're looking at page numbers or different things in a book. And the key part of this lesson is to introduce some dual and plural nouns. So singular in Arabic we call mufradun, dual we call muthanna, and plural we say jam'un. So it's important to pay attention to the grammatical terms in Arabic as well, because they're used all throughout Islamic literature. You find them in shuruh, explanations of hadith like Fath al-Bari. You find them in all the different tafasirs, exegesis, when they're trying to explain the grammar of, verses of Quran. So always be on the lookout for those. And so we're going to start with dual. Now, dual is a unique thing to Semitic languages. Syriac has it, Hebrew has it, of course, Arabic has it. But it's really not something you see in any other languages in the world except for Semitic languages. So this is a really cool and unique part about Arabic that's really fun, and you get to see the preciseness that Arabic has compared to English. So the dual form, obviously, it means that there's two, like ithnain, muthanna. You see it's that same root there, or ithnan, rather. And we'll get to the an and ain here in a moment. So duals, they're formed by adding the suffix, and suffix means it's a affix or attachment that's put at the end of a word. And so the suffix of an, so if you have rajulun, indefinite, a man, rajulun, you can convert it to be dual by just replacing the lun part with lani. So rajulani, rajulun becomes rajulani. And even if it's definite and has the alif lam in front of it instead of the dhammatain at the end, like here we have al-jannatu, the garden, we can say al-jannatani, al-jannatani. So the u at the end, the dhamma, has been replaced by ani. So instead of al-jannatu, it's al-jannatani. So that's the basic rule how to make any sort of noun or ism as a dual. And it also goes for adjectives and things like that, which we'll get to more later on. So that the tanween, or the dhammatain right there, the un, if that will disappear when we add the ani. And this is in the default case, which is called raf'un or marfu'. So if it's in a different case, like if it's munkhafid, or if it is maftuh, then it becomes ain instead of an. So rajulan becomes rajulain, or rajulaini. So even if you got the alif lam to make it definite, it's still going to be aini at the end. So you can have rajulain to be indefinite, to say two men. So this is accusative or genitive case, which means majroor or munkhafid or maftuh. Okay. And so here we have jannataini or al-jannataini. So basically the standard is ani, rajulani, but it can also come up as rajulaini. So the an and ain are something you're going to look at the end of the word that may indicate that this is a dual noun. So you want to, keep that in mind when you're looking at words, when you're trying to read or decipher a page in Arabic. And then we have plurals, jam'un. So there's many different ways to make plurals in Arabic, but the easiest and most basic way they call jam'un salimun. So a sound plural. And here we have the sound masculine plurals, or jam'u al-mudhakkar as-salim. And so here we have the suffix of una that we end to the word when it's marfu', or in the case of rafa'. So muslimun becomes muslimuna. And so native Arabic speakers, they make a pretty big deal about this, about how long you end your un with. When it's dhammatain, it should be muslimun, like a more quicker, shortened un. When it's plural, it's muslimuna. You have not only the sound at the end here, this fatha over the noon, but this is a long oo sound. And whenever you have a long oo sound with the waw like that, you're typically going to round your lips as well. That's one feature in Arabic linguistics that you don't often see too much in the teaching manuals, but it's something that they've recorded with devices on the ground. So they say muslimuna, or you have as-salihu, salihuna, the righteous people. Right? So you have the righteous person or the righteous people. So it's called sound because if you see here, the core of the word, it stays intact. It's sound. It stays pretty much the same here, right? We have salih, salihuna, right? And in the same manner that we have ani becomes aini when it becomes majroor or maftuh, when we have a sound plural that is a masculine one here, which becomes majroor or maftuh, accusative or genitive, it's going to be ina instead of una. It's going to be ina. And when you make that long e sound at the end, you kind of almost smiling. It's muslimina. And that helps to extend that and get that correct sound there. So you'd say muslimun becomes muslimina. Al-muslimun, al-muslimu becomes al-muslimina. Okay? And so whether it's majroor or maftuh, it's going to be this ina sound that gets put at the end. And notice here that there's no tanween, there's no dhammatain or fathatain or anything like that. So even though it is indefinite, it's still going to end with ina. So that is something important to keep in mind there. And with the female version, so jam'u al-muannathu, excuse me, jam'u al-muannathu as-salim. So here it's going to be at. So muslimatun becomes muslimatun. As-salihatu, as-salihatu. So in this case, when we want to make it accusative or genitive, majroor, maftuh, it's always going to end as if it's majroor, okay? As if you have the two lines underneath or the one line there, which makes it muslimatin or al-muslimatin, or excuse me, al-muslimati. You will never see muslimaten with the fathatain on the top. You don't see that with these sound feminine plurals here. It only will go in, like that. Muslimatin or al-muslimati. Okay? So it will never show up as al-muslimata or al-muslimatan. I hope that's clear. So you're just going to have the kasratain underneath or one kasra, but never a fatha on top or fathatain. So when it becomes, accusative or genitive, you're just going to have the kasratain, okay, or kasra. So I know that may be a little bit of information overload, but the idea is to read this and review it as much as possible and then, apply it. And here, the irregular broken plurals is another type of plural in Arabic. So these sound plurals here, it's usually something that's, right here, it's usually something that's taught in the beginning of most Arabic grammar books because it's, quite frankly, easy to grasp. It's not too difficult. But most of the verbs in Arabic are not sound verbs. They don't keep the body of the word the same. Most of them are actually what you would call irregular plurals, or in this case, broken plurals, which is a specific type of the irregular. So jam'u at-taksir, taksir means broken, so jam'u is plural, and so we have nafsun, which you could translate to ego or soul, or even the Freudian id becomes nufusun, and kitabun becomes kutubun, so book, and then books is plural. Yaumun, a day, becomes ayamun, so days. And then we have a mountain, jabalun becomes jibalun. So those are different ways to make plurals in Arabic. And one of the most common patterns you see is kind of like this, where it's like ayyamun from yaum. That's pretty common one. So here, if we look at some examples of how duals and plurals are being used, we have qala rajulani. So you notice rajulun becomes rajulani by adding the suffix ani to the end of it. You could even say, this is Quranic, so that's why we've preserved it this way, but you could also conjugate the verb as dual and say qala rajulani. But usually when you have qala in front of even a plural, it's okay. You don't have to necessarily say qala or qalu or anything like that. People still understand what you mean. And here's another example. Alam taj'al lahu aynayni. So and when you recite it, you see that there's a little shadda over the lam here. That's because when you recite it, you would say alam taj'al lahu aynayni. And so here it's maf'ul, it's the object, and so therefore it's maftuh. And so instead of ani, we have aini, but it's still dual of ain, which is eye. So ainain is two eyes, right? Two eyes, ainain. And then here it says فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ مُسْلِمُونَ. So do not die, and this is a special way of doing it for emphasis here with this noon with the shadda. فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا, except that, and this wa is to mean while, except while you are Muslims. فَلَا تَمُوتُنَّ إِلَّا وَأَنْتُمْ muslimuna. So here we have the sound masculine plural that ends in una. So do not die except as Muslims. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتَيْنَ or قَانِتِينَ. Sorry. وَقُومُوا لِلَّهِ قَانِتِينَ. And stand for Allah devoutly obedient. And so that's, again, here, sound masculine plural. Then we have إِذَّ جَاءَكَ الْمُؤْمِنَاتُ. So when the believing women come to you. إِنِّي أَرَى سَبْعَ بَقَرَاتٍ سِمَانٍ. So indeed I saw 7 fat cows. So baqara becomes baqaratin. So it would have been baqaratan with fathatain if it was singular, but because it's plural, you get the tin with kasratain instead of fathatain. So baqaratin. And here we have broken plural. So ونقص من الأموال والأنفس والثمرات. Okay, so this is a good little verse here to explain the grammar, because amwali comes from the singular mal, money. So al-amwali here is a broken plural, and anfus. So you have nufus. Another plural form of it is anfus. So al-anfus. And so both of those are types of broken plurals. And then thamarati. Can anyone guess what a thamarati is? It comes from singular thamra. So that is a sound feminine plural right there from the word fruit. Thamra. Then here we have قلوب يومئذ واجفة. Hearts that day will tremble. So hearts, qalb is singular, qalbun, and here we have qulubun. So that is just kind of like the same pattern as nufus up here. So that is also a broken plural, qulubun. And here's a very famous hadith. It says here, it's in Bukhari. This hadith is also in the collection Riyadh al-Salihin from Imam al-Nawawi. And it says here, كلمتان خفيفتان على اللسان ثقيلتان في الميزان. It's got this really nice rhyme to it. حبيبتان إلا الرحمن سبحان الله العظيم سبحان الله وبحمده. So 2 light words on the tongue they're 2 heavy words on the scale. They're 2 beloved words to the most merciful, Rahman. It should have an at the end there. It should have a digger aleph. So there are 2 words that are light on the tongue, heavy on the scale, beloved to the most merciful. Glory be to Allah, the mighty. Glory and praise be to Allah. So here we have the marfu', suffix ani that shows up kalimatani, khafifatani, and you notice these agree in gender. Ala lisani, that's just, lisan is just the type of word, just like Rahman and Mizan. They're not dual. So the ending ani is not a guarantee that they will be dual. That's just the word lisan. But here, thaqilatan, they're 2 heavy words. Thaqil means something's heavy. It's got heft, weight to it. And mizan is scale, from the root wazn, mizan. It's ism ala, the tool. Habibatan, so they're both beloved to Ar-Rahman, meaning Allah. And that's the saying there. So even Habibatan here, we have the ani at the end, and Thaqilatani. So you can see here that the adjectives match up with the dual noun as well. So they're all dual there. So it's a really, really beautiful hadith there. Some people, they do this with their prayer beads 1,000 times a day, this saying here. Subhanallah al-azim, subhanallahi wa bihamdihi. And here's a section on subtleties of Arabic. So when counting the word one, wahid, it means one. But you also have the word ahadun. But it's not really used in counting. And when you use ahad, like qul huwallahu ahad, it means no possibility of a second. It is one and one alone. So that, it has to do with Islamic theology of tawheed, which means to make into one. Right? Wahada, tawheed. So it's the same root there. So ما جعل الله لرجل من قلبين في جوفه. So where do we see here a dual? Well, we do see the suffix aini on qalb. So this is two hearts. So Allah has not made for any man two hearts inside of him. So jawfihi, fi jawfihi. Jawf is like the hollow area, the inside. So in his inner area, there is not two hearts. And here, why did Allah use the word rajulun instead of imra'atin or, insan or something like that? And that's because this point here, a woman does not, when she's pregnant, could have another heart in her jawf, so to say. And so that's just a little cool point there. We also hear the word plural, jam'un, like I was mentioning before. It all has to do with gathering or bringing together. So we have jami'un, which is a large mosque. So you say like Jami' Azhar, Al-Azhar, the Azhar Mosque, which you see in Cairo, which I've visited, a very beautiful place. And then we have Jum'ah, Al-Jumu'ah, which, Friday prayer, the mosque. And then we have Jama'atun, a group. And then Ijtima' is also a group there. It can also mean consensus, or gathering. It can also mean consensus. There's lots of different words that come from this. Majma' is another way to say gathering as well. So many different stuff come from the same root. If you put a ta marbuta at the end of that, jami'atun, then it becomes university, because a university is where people gather. And so here's a tree that kind of visually demonstrates, how plurals work in Arabic, the basics of it. So singular, it's going to be like muslimun. If you want to make it dual, you can make it muslimani, muslimaini. If you want to make it plural, you can make it muslimuna, muslimina, or muslimat, if you want to make it feminine. So that's just kind of a nice little diagram there. And like it says here again, the majority of plurals are going to be not sound plurals in Arabic. That's just the way Semitic languages work. It's the same in Syriac and Hebrew and others. And so here's another chart here that just kind of summarizes and shows you how it's going. So majrur or jar, genitive. We have mansub, accusative, nasbun, right, and raf'un. And these are they're also shown this way. Raf'un, nasbun. Nasbun it means like something sticking up. It refers to being maftuh. These are all terms that you'll see in the famous book Al-Ajrumiyya. So here we have muslimun. If you want to make it accusative, musliman. Genitive, muslimin. And it's important to pay attention to the English grammar words too, not only the Arabic, because there are some books that were written by like Orientalists or linguists, like Thaxton for Quranic Arabic, where these terms are used more often than the indigenous terms. So do, pay attention to all of them, okay? And try to get to know them. So we have mufradun, muthannan, jam'un, or muthanna. So muslimun could be muslimani, muslimaini. If you want to make it dual, it could be muslimuna, muslimina, if you want to make it plural. So when they're accusative or genitive, you kind of get the same result in the dual and the sound plural. But when they're singular, you see here that they're, you get dhammatain, you get fathatain or kasratain, the tanween, in other words. So tanween is a sign that it's singular. And the ani or aini is a sign that it's dual. Una, ina is a sign that it could be a plural noun. And it's just a sign, it's not the only sign, it's just one indication of many. And for feminine, it's relatively the same thing. You can have the dhammatain or the kasratain or fathatain and kasratain. And we can have ani put at the end or aini put at the end. But then when you get to the sound plurals here, it becomes at, atun, or atin, depending on if it's nominative, like a nominal sentence, that has two nouns, like the dog is happy, something like that. And then here we have the exercises. So this is so you could put it into practice. How do you make it dual and plural? So we should have al-muslimatani, al-muslimatu, excuse me. And then we have jannatun, so jannatani, and jannatun. And of course, these are both in feminine here, so you want to check the feminine side. This is masculine, so mu'minun becomes mu'minen or mu'minuna, and so on and so forth. With these, we can check these and go over them if you would like. And here for 4b, we have translate each word or phrase below. So 2 moons, would that be qamaran? We have 1 truth, and we have making them plurals here too. And so if you have any questions about that, I'd be happy to work one-on-one with you in regards to any of the exercises here. And this one also we're translating, from the Arabic to English, so just the reversal side of it here. And then we got all the answer keys here. So if there's anything that's not clear with the answer keys, feel free to reach out to me and I can definitely assist with that. And here we have morphology exercises. So morphology is a linguistic word that has to do with how suffixes and prefixes and interfixes, all the different affixes, change a word. And that means things that you attach to word or detach from a word. How does it change the word, and how does that work in language? So here, this is kind of review for the section where you went over the past tense verb darasa. And so you have darastu or darasna. And so this is plural or dual, singular. So what's the translation of darastu? I studied. Darasna, we studied. And so it's just kind of like making your own chart here to understand how that works. And there might be an answer key for this as well. Let me just double check here. Looks like it. Yep. So if you have any questions about these exercises, feel free to reach out to me and I can get back to you regarding them. But that is basically the gist of lesson 4. And so if we want to put it into practice with text here, and of course we got vocabulary words, so make sure that you've looked at the vocabulary first, and so that you can work with the text properly. So يستقبل القبلة ويقول, so face the qibla, the prayer direction, towards the Kaaba, and say Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. I think there should be a wow there. Wa ashhadu an la ilaha ill. Oh, this is supposed to be the adhan here. Okay, so Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu an la ilaha illallah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Ashhadu anna Muhammadar Rasulullah. Hayya ala salah, hayya ala salah, hayya ala falah. And of course, we have, you hear, the kasra at the end. So technically, hayya ala falahi. So hayya ala falah. Allahu Akbar, Allahu Akbar. La ilaha illallah. الدعاء بعد الأذان. So al-adhan. So notice here we have ani, but it's not a dual. So that doesn't always mean dual. It's usually a sign of it, but it's not the only indication. You have to look at other factors as well. Allahumma rabba hadhihi ad-da'wa at-tamah was-salatu qa'imah. Maybe that's supposed to be Ali Muhammad. I think that Ali Muhammadan al-wasila wal-fadila. وابعثوا مقاما محمودا الذي وعدته. So if you want to analyze it, grammatically here, you're able to do that. And wasila, high place in paradise, and the wasala root has to do with seeking or connecting. So wasila is a means of doing something. Tawassul, sometimes it's translated as intercession. Al-wasila is a high status or special place within paradise. So these are, kind of important connections to know. And you have wasala, to arrive, wasalla or wassala, to unite or convey. Wasila, it's another word for naqa or she-camel. And then silla, connection. Some ulama also say that this is the root for the word salah or prayer. So your salah, your formal prayer, is a connection to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. So here we have it all translated, so that you can work on your translation skills if you wanted to translate the whole entire textual analysis. And then quiz 4. So that's the lesson for today. I hope you enjoyed it. And like I said, if there's any questions, anything, even if you think it's minor at all, feel free to reach out to me, and I'd be more than happy to answer your questions about Arabic grammar. I hope you could feel my passion and fall in love with it as much as I have. That's pretty much it. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuhu.